All right, now let's dive into last night's presidential debate, the first between Vice President Harris and former President Trump. The two candidates sparred over all kinds of issues, from immigration to the economy. We'll touch on some of the bigger moments during the debate in just a second and get your comments. But the discussion over who won the debate or what it could mean for Election Day really depends on where you lean politically. And that brings us to something that we think is very interesting. Here's a map that comes from John Horvick with the excellent local group DHM Research, showing the sheer size of the Portland media market and the political makeup of registered voters. Our signal also extends into southwest Washington, but this is just a look at Oregon. From the northwest coast to the borders with Idaho and Nevada, everywhere you see dots on this map are areas where Portland TV signals go. And while the dots are interesting, here's what the numbers show as far as politics in the market. The highest percentage belongs to non-affiliated voters at 38%. Democrats are next at 35%, Republicans in third at 20%, or 1 in 5, followed by the Independent Party of Oregon at 5% and a few others. Horvick also included this fascinating graph with updated registration numbers from the Oregon Secretary of State's statewide voter registrations over time. In the 50s, we had a nearly 50-50 split between Democrats and Republicans. The rise of non-affiliated voters and independents, the orange line, began in the mid-70s, steadily increasing until they overtook Republicans in 2012 and Democrats in 2016. And now we have voter registration, which comes when someone registers, gets a license for the first time. And so that becomes an unaffiliated person if they don't check a box. All right, so now you know and you understand where the political lines appear to fall in Oregon. Let's get to some of your thoughts about last night's debate. And first, let me say this. We hoped for, but we did not get any pro-Trump comments from you viewers. Nobody wrote to us to say that they thought he came out on top last night. Out of fairness, we would have definitely included those comments in this segment. And I know that some of you out there support him. But alas, nothing arrived in our inbox. Nancy wrote to us, though, to say, I can't believe I could sit through the whole thing. Can anybody ever actually answer a question? OMG, I'm an independent that leans a bit toward the right. All I can say is that it is absolutely shameful that we have to pick between these two. No matter who wins, the next 4 years will be an S show. Unbelievable.
I found Trump to be his usual outrageous as usual, and could hardly stand to continue watching. I voted for him the first time, but could never vote for him again.
All right, and Kathy told us Harris clearly won the debate. Trump is so witless and dull. He just keeps throwing the same old boring stuff at the wall and hoping it'll stick. Harris was able to bait him so easily, it's almost sad. His skin is so thin, you can almost see his internal organs. Thanks for that, Kathy. And how about this from Kim? Both had the pivot down to a science. I wish that they would have answered the questions instead of answering what they wanted to. I guess I'll be voting for Vice President Harris, not because I like her answers, but because she's not President Trump. I've never liked him and cannot support him. I wish that we had better choices. Now, let's hone in on some of the big issues and the claims made during the debate. As a few of you noted in your emails to us, there was plenty of pivoting going on, including on the very first question to Vice President Harris. And just a reminder, we talk about pivots every once in a while here, but if you missed it, a pivot happens when someone's asked a question that they don't really like, and so they just pivot and quickly answer a question they would rather like. And Vice President was asked if the country is better off now, nearly 4 years after she and President Biden were elected. She simply pivoted, did not answer, and began talking about her plan. And we'll touch on two more parts of the debate before we move on tonight. First, the former president's claim that immigrants in an Ohio town are eating family pets.
They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
Okay, one of the moderators fact-checked the former president, saying ABC News had talked with the town's city manager, who said there is no evidence that that's happening at all. And today, Ohio's Republican governor visited the town, telling reporters he trusts the mayor and other county officials who say there are no credible reports of immigrants eating pets.
Well, you know, I think we should take the word of the city manager and the mayor that they've found no credible evidence of that story of Haitians eating pets. I think it's important for us to really focus in Springfield, and this is what we have done, on what's important. Take a community where they now have an additional 15,000 people come in. That's very, very unusual. And it creates particular challenges. These are challenges that we can work on, and that's what we're doing.
And finally, the former president is still convinced that he won the 2020 election, despite the fact that we are less than 2 months away from the 2024 election.
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say that.
sarcastically.
But
You know
those-
that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval.
Well, the former president is right when he says there's so much proof. But unfortunately for him, the proof debunks his insistence that the 2020 election was rigged. More than 60 state and federal courts and his own attorney general have determined 2020 was a fair and square election. And despite the animosity on stage last night in Philadelphia, Harris and Trump actually shook hands this morning ahead of the 9/11 memorial ceremony in New York. No word yet on if there will be another debate between Harris and Trump before the election, but their VP candidates will soon square off. Democrat Tim Walz and Republican J.D. Vance are scheduled to debate on October 1st.